don't like what BLM activists do today. And you have to explain that disconnect by somehow separating these extremely well-connected movements.
Bro, how many books on American intellectual history do you read?
Backwoods packages litter tabletops, gone off that shit, my eyes lower than your stable stock.
I'm gonna be nerding out about books in a bit, but I have a good pile right here. Look at this shit. I have a good pile right here, but I'm gonna be speaking about this one book I have that I didn't get with my own money. Is this book called The Power of Imagination by Neville Goddard. It's a collection of all of his other works into one single book, which this is like 580 to 590 pages long. It's quite a big book. But on the story and how I acquired it, it was some fucking destiny type, fate type bullshit. So I was in this room, exactly not in this orientation, but just on my computer, and all of a sudden the lights were fucking out, and that made me go outside and touch grass. But also at the same time I was hungry, so I went to my local Pollo Loco, and I only had like $5 in it, but they had this type of menu that only had like $5 things. It was pretty good food. So when I was done eating the food, I was gonna go back home, but my autism kicked in. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to that bookstore, I'm just gonna look at some shit, right? Immediately I went to the fucking self-help, self-improvement section, as I always do first whenever I go into those bookstores.
So this next piece of material, like most good ideas, is fairly simple. It's just a list of people who ought to be killed. Starting with these people who read self-help books.
George Carlin is one of those fucking all-edge, no-point motherfuckers. And also, the greatest irony of this clip itself is that he's read a fucking self-help book that actually helped him to become the nigga that we all know him to be. Just to let you all niggas know, right? But there is something different. There was this like college class. I'm not even miming here. Some grown-ass woman had some dyed hair and all that shit. Some purple violet, some green, but no red, surprisingly. And they had some exotic haircuts, but that isn't the main shit. But it was a college class, and they were quite fucking loud. They were in the music section and all that shit. And it was next to the self-improvement books, so my attention was kind of grabbed by them too. I was looking at them, I was kind of like hearing what they're saying, some dumb bullshit. There's this guy that was walking around there too. This guy's name, let's call him Ulysses. He asked himself out loud, what kind of fucking, what is this shit? What is this shit? And I answered him, it's probably a college class. But he saw that I was going around the self-improvement book section, and so he started to talk to me about Dr. Joe Dispenza, the science-approved schizo guy who's kind of actually really smart, and he has this one big concept on how your thoughts can heal you and all that stuff. Kind of schizo shit, but if you really have genuine faith in that type of stuff, it actually fucking works. It actually fucking works and all that stuff. So we started talking about that shit. We both know about that, but I never really knew about Neville Goddard. I've heard of his name before, but I never read his shit before. So he pulled out this book and said, you know what's a good book? It's this book right here. People quote him and all that stuff, you know, all that shit. I was like, yo, you should get it. You should get it. You should get it. But I said, I don't have enough money. I already spent it on some fucking food and all that stuff. And he said, oh, bro, follow me. And he just took the book, and I was following him to the fucking cashier spot. And he bought it for me. This is like a good month ago that this happened. And when I told my parents about this shit, especially my mom, she said, oh, don't trust strangers. Oh, you know, did he ask you for anything? You know, shut the fuck up. Shut up, you paranoid bitch. All right. And like, come on, man, how can you say that after your son getting blessed? How can you say that? You know, that's kind of dumb. And so I ran on to immediately read the fucking book. I voraciously read every single part of it with some audios, you know, to actually help me remember every single thing. And this has a lot of references to God, and has a lot of biblical scriptures thrown all around each fucking section of the book. This has like 10 books in one book, alright? And it's pretty powerful. Your imagination, like, this is legitimately the ground base of every single like self-improvement thing. What your thoughts are in here just is projected everywhere in the real world. In metaphysics, the schizo philosophy, though every single philosophy from philosophy can be classified as schizo, metaphysics can be just outright be said, oh, this is so fucking schizo. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? There are a lot of case studies and stories from this one singular book, from a lot of the other books in this one book, on how these niggas manifested their own shit, their homes, their fucking businesses exploding and all that shit in the good way, exploding in the good way. And Neville Goddard was the OG fucking manifester. He wasn't the fucking bitchy modern girl saying, oh, I want to manifest a text from him, writing spells like a fucking witch. I think that's enough for you to get a good idea on what it is. Get the fucking book if you're having some hard time or anything like that, and you're somehow watching this shit. I guarantee you it's a good fucking purchase, alright? It's a good fucking thing, because I realized I've been doing a lot of the shit in here without even knowing the name of it. You ever do things that you read books on before you even know the name of it? It's fucking crazy, alright? Alright, besides that schizo book, I'm gonna be going on my pile here, right? I have 19 books in total right now. This is September 30th, 2022. I might have 100 books by next year. So this is one of the first books I ever got, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradbury and John Greaves. This book teaches you on the difference between EQ and IQ. Everybody knows IQ, intelligent quotient. You know how smart Albert Einstein is, that 200 IQ motherfucker who is a farmer. You know what I'm talking about. But the difference between EQ, emotional intelligence, or emotional quotient, it teaches you on how to manage your emotions creatively and, you know, make it useful in a very beneficial way for you, in a constructive and productive way. There is one thing I still remember from this. I need to reread this shit, but there's one thing I remember. Don't ever say I know when somebody's saying like, oh, what about this, what about that, what about this, you know, boom 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 boom, like that, you know. You say, okay, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right, because immediately that shuts them the fuck up, and also it actually gives them, you know, that satisfaction of just saying, okay, I proved them wrong, I'm right, I can shut the fuck up now, I'm happy, you know. It kind of makes you a lot more humble in that process. You know, the word humility, it sounds a lot like humiliation, but it isn't really humiliating yourself. It's more of a humbling yourself, not making yourself high and mighty. But speaking on that shit, I have this one book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. This speaks on how ego creates and destroys empires that niggas have created over their fucking lives, alright? Through music, art, politics, and all that stuff. It's completely fucking universal on how this internal thing works, on our self-perceived fucking image of ourselves. Most of the times we see ourselves higher than what we actually are, and sometimes people like to bring themselves down even though they really don't deserve that. You know those friends that usually push themselves down for no fucking reason and makes themselves depressed that way? Yeah, don't do that. You're retarded, alright? And this kind of shows through like the three processes of, I think, building yourself up, the peak, and failure. You have to have a student mindset throughout every single fucking phase of that. Through your successes, through your peak, and through your failure. I'm probably fucking it up. Maybe it's like before the success, and then success, and then the fucking failure, and all that stuff. This is the, I'm not even bullshitting, 1984 by George Orwell. This is, I'm not even memeing, this was the first book that I've just started reading. I read this a lot, and, you know, I've always heard the memes, you know, oh, this is literally 1984, this is all that bullshit, you know. So I decided to read the book. I haven't read Brave New World by that one nigga, but I'm gonna read that after I'm done with the book I'm reading right now, which is The Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. This shit explains why people are retarded nowadays. This explains why I don't want to say the word liberals because it makes me want to kill myself. It makes me sound like I'm a Ben Shapiro 2016 motherfucker. But who do I have to say? Liberals or leftists? Liberals are actually a lot more rational than leftists. That's what most people focus on, the leftists. Well, not the liberals, because they're more rational, but at the same time, they're kind of a bit more... Actually, they're more rational. They're a bit more rational because they don't really believe in the dumb bullshit that leftists really believe in. And it shows on how good intentions and bad ideas just is setting a generation just for failure. I'm in the Generation Z, 1995 and after that. You know, when they turn 18, the niggas from 1995, that's kind of when it started actually, 2013 and on from now. Almost 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago actually, from 2013. That's fucking crazy. This book right here, I haven't read it yet. The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. It's an economics book and all that stuff. It was made in 1776. They were fighting the fucking British during this fucking time, so you know it's gonna be a fucking good one. I'm gonna read this after I'm done with Brave New World, after I'm done with The Coddling of the American Mind, so yeah, I have a good order. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Like, all this shit is probably gonna be some fucking corny ass motherfucking things, you know. Sun Tzu, Art of War. There is one big major fucking idea from this, is that the greatest way you can win a war against a people is to win a war where they don't know they're in a war right now. We're in a, like, I don't look like I have much masculinity in me, you know, but when I turn fucking 25, you're gonna see a big transformation. I'm 16 right now. 9 years from now, you're gonna see a very big transformation, not only in numbers, not only in physical, not only in voice, not only in just fucking every single thing, but in just masculinity. There's a war of masculinity and people don't know about it. People are just dumbed down and numbed down, you know. They're just fucking distracted all the way around, playing video games and doing all these fucking bad habits. You already know, you know. If you know it to be bad for you, why are you still doing it? This book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know, with COVID and all that shit, that fucked up everybody who was young as me, social-wise, because they were just in here all fucking day, God forbid doing PE, in the inside of their homes, and they don't know how to fucking communicate with other people, you know? This is a good book. This is a good book. I need to reread this after I'm done with reading all that bullshit, you know? This teaches you on how to just socialize with people, make friends, and influence people on how to do shit. There was this one story of this one 15-year-old boy smoking cigarettes, and his father just convinced him not to do that if he stopped doing that too, because he was smoking cigarettes too. And he stopped, and this was during, from the present tense, 15 years ago. So the boy's like, at that time, was like 30 now. That father is like 15 years free from cigarettes, you know, fucks you up in the lungs and all that stuff. And there's this story on how this baby livened up an entire fucking courtroom, or no, not courtroom, just a rating room before they go into court, you know, for at least like a service type of thing. You know, you have to go to court in order to testify or testimony or whatever. It's just like some normal American service shit. You know what I mean. I haven't read this book. I only read like a section of it, but not fully. This is one of the schizo books by Nietzsche. I think he actually had some schizophrenia, but he had like some fucking syphilis and all that stuff. But this is what introduced me to metaphysics, or at least the word, what it meant, you know. And that shit is crazy. That shit is, there's a lot of things in here that I have to just read and just digest. I was like, okay, alright, this is what that nigga means, alright. This is one I'm not finished with yet. This is called The Art of Memory by Francis A. Yates, alright. This is fucking wild, you know, on how people memorize shit, on how people go into like memory rooms when they like, close their eyes, close their senses and all that stuff, and they just they just imagine these fucking dramatized versions of these images so they can memorize all this stuff. And orators like Cicero and all that bullshit use this type of technique in order to memorize his and niggas like and orators use this technique to memorize their entire fucking speeches like Cicero. Alright, I gotta finish this book, it's really interesting. This is book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I made a video on this like last year. There's probably a lot of successful people that don't tell you that they've read this book, that just charge them towards success. People, I've read online that this guy's a fucking fraud and all that stuff, and he never really met with all these rich big niggas and all that stuff, or even with the richest man in the world. I don't care, alright? This shit sounds good enough for me, and it kind of prompted me to just get myself up away from this bullshit, all of this crab bucket, all that stuff. The next book I have is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. This just goes over on the process and how you can set up a online business and join the new rich. You can just escape the 9 to 5 and just have a 4-hour work week, but I don't think most people would want a 4-hour work week, because wouldn't that get fucking boring and all that shit, you know? Wouldn't that get boring quickly if you just retire at such a young age, you know? I'm sorry if I am not summarizing these books very well in just like a very succinct way. This is just my interpretation on these books, alright? The next book I have is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. This is a great story slash motivation slash like self-help book. The fucking transformation just on the book cover is what just grabbed my attention. I've always seen this guy on YouTube before, but I've never read this fucking book before. He also has another book too, which I don't know what his name is, but I'll probably read that in the future. And this just proves the human spirit on just its fucking persistence, man. Next book I have is The Way of the Superior Man by David Dita. This speaks a lot about masculinity and the feminine side of people, you know, of men and women. Most people know about feminine men because they're bitches, they're soy boys. They're usually the ones that are more depressed. You know the ones I'm talking about, you know the ones. It's a good guidebook, kind of, I think, to, you know, cultivating your masculinity as a straight guy. I don't know about gay men. GG unlucky too, man. This next book I have is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I have nothing really interesting to say about this other than that a lot of people read this. I have seen a lot of people read this shit in school. They even have like a book here. And it just shows you on how to break a habit and how to form a good one. The next book I have is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and it's by Dr. Joseph Murphy. This shit blew my fucking mind, not only because of all the stories that just proved its fucking power, but also I was using this bullshit too. At the same time, I was using this shit too, way before I ever knew it had a fucking name. The Power of the Subconscious Mind, or just the subconscious mind. I just always knew this shit. You know, when you're just sitting down bored and you just imagine somebody doing something that's like he's right in front of you, and you're just imagining him doing something, and then like a few seconds later, he does it. That's fucking crazy. The next book I have is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. I stole this book from my sister. She got this gifted like as one of her birthday gifts, and dead ass, I knew she wasn't gonna read it, so I just took it. I think one of her friends were trying to look out for her in the financial sense, but even if she did read it, she wouldn't. She fucking wouldn't. But besides being a bit personal, this is a kind of a good it's kind of a bit surface level on the real estate type of side of, you know, money and all that shit. But it's a good introductory, alright? It's nothing bad, but it's not the best, even though it's sold a lot, but it's not bad, you know? It's not bad. I have this book right here. It's called The U.S. Constitution and Other Writings by Canterbury Classics, or however you pronounce that shit. I don't even think you can get this online. I got this from like a other bookstore, way far away from here, and it has just the US Constitution and all of the historical writings, you know, this country has produced and all that stuff. Most people know, you know. Alright, this is where the corniness reaches its highest fucking level. I have these two books from Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature and The 48 Laws of Power. I don't even know where to start with these two fucking books, but I'm gonna start with the Human Nature one. That book fucking blew my mind on a lot of things, because it felt like a cheat code, just knowing this shit. Like, okay, yeah, you're doing this because you like this and this and this. I don't want to sound like Jordan Peterson, like saying all this, like, oh, you probably like are very high on the neuroticism scale, you know, on the MBTI, whatever the fuck it's called, you know. It just gives you a clearer image on why people are the way they are, or how people are the way they are, you know. And for the 48 Laws of Power, people say this is like very corny to read, or you shouldn't read this shit because it corrupts you and all that stuff. Powerful people use this shit. Why shouldn't I be able to learn this stuff? And also, it has some controversial laws in here, and some of them are quite outdated because this was written in like in the 90s, and famous to be said, it was banned in prisons because people because niggas in prisons were fearing that prisoners would just read this and learn on how to manipulate niggas, you know. So it's kind of understandable, at the same time, you know, kind of like, ooh, what is that? Ooh, you know. I forgot to mention the 3 audiobooks that I did in like 1 week. The first one I did was .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. It's one of the 3 of the books in his trilogy of the .com Secrets shit on how to make an online business, you know. This series, I haven't done the other 2, but this book does go very in depth on how to attract people and how to do traffic and all that stuff on the internet. I think this was made in like 2017, I don't fucking know, but it's good. It's fucking good information, and it should be listened to when you're like young and all that stuff, since the internet and social media is like the new gold rush for fucking everybody in the world. So yeah. The second book I did was Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stephen Arnio, and this, holy fuck, it just articulates a lot of the shit I've had in my mind for so fucking long. You ever have something in your mind articulated in such a way that it just makes you just like, yeah, that's what I've been saying all along, but even if you never said a single fucking word out loud about it. If you don't believe in the shit that I believe in, but if you're still willing to listen to this shit, alright? Listen to Hard Times Create Strong Men. There's a free copy out there on SoulSeek, the full one, on contiguous, nothing like partitioned into parts and all that stuff. Just one go all the way through. So you gotta take some notes on the times that you stop, alright? And the one I am currently doing is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. After I'm done with this, I'm gonna go to the Coloring of the American Mind and all that stuff. This, I'm just very curious on what one of the Roman emperors just had to say with his fucking schizo thoughts, alright? And also, it's just disseminating the fucking philosophy of Stoicism, alright? I want to just know what Stoicism is, and maybe practice it in real life and on the internet, maybe. I don't fucking know. Yeah. Forgot to fucking mention this shit. That is my pile of books as of today, and I can't wait to actually put this video out. I might get roasted as fuck, or just people would just say, we don't care, kill yourself, you know, you're gay and fake, you know. But I want to just share this shit because you don't see anybody in this community, or just a 16-year-old just reading all these fucking books. Look at this shit. I need to pile this up. I hope this doesn't fall down. Okay, you don't see a 16-year-old read all these fucking books. You don't see someone normal reading all this shit, you know? You don't see normal people do this shit, alright? I'm not gonna be normal in the future.